And I will do a few little updates for folks, just so you're kind of in the loop and know everything that's going on. So I'm sure that you got, well, if you checked your email today, you got at the statewide Tennessee Extension Master Gardener, e-blast update that Natalie sends out, and kind of really just outlines everything that's going on across the state. And so I will just kind of reinforce some of those things. So the university last Friday opened up meeting guidelines and said that groups under 50 people could meet as of July 1st. But we would have to follow all the CDC rules and guidelines. That includes temperatures, 6 feet social distance, masks, the whole 9 yards. And that is their stance now. Whereas before, they just said, we're opening the gates on August 1st, and everybody can have whatever kind of meetings they want. So just depends on which way you look at it. I'm a little relieved because I was nervous about us attempting to meet again as a group in August with the numbers the way that they are here in Madison County. So I think that it just isn't going to be feasible for us to meet. We're such a large group, and to do all those things for us to meet in person. So for the immediate future, we're just going to continue on doing our monthly meetings via Zoom. I know that is not ideal, but that is what we have to work with. So we are just going to try to make the best of that. And like I said, you guys are doing great. So as long as we can keep everybody engaged and intrigued and interested in coming to the meetings via Zoom with good topics and speakers, we're going to continue in this fashion. Also, update on the forefront of projects. Y'all are doing a great job, kind of the project leaders managing things themselves, kind of following the guidelines I'd set forth last month, where I said I can't be involved. They said that volunteers can do things on their own, but the agents can't be involved in that planning process. Y'all have done a great job. I've been seeing lots of good pictures of things that have been accomplished on our Facebook page, and I love the way that y'all are communicating with each other via our closed Facebook group, and just getting things done and knocking it out of the park, really. But now that they have formally said, groups under 50 can meet, that opens the door a little bit for me to be more involved. So if you need some help organizing a small work project or something like that, I can help you coordinate that if you need it. But like I said, y'all been doing just fine on your own. But if you need me, I'm here, and I can help you with that now. And I feel like there was something else I was going to add to that. Right, so outside, these activities need to be outside, not inside. And of course you need to wear a face mask. Well, if it's not just you, right? Like if it's just you going out and weeding somewhere, you can do whatever you want. But if you've got a small group of people with you, then I would definitely social distance and wear a mask. And let's try to keep it like, I'd be happiest with like around five people, right, together at a time. And now that's not written in stone anywhere. That's just something I came up with. So you can do what you're comfortable with, but that's what I would be comfortable with.
Jason said to mention farmers market.
Yes, the farmers market. Yeah. So Angela Bailey, is she on here? Is she on the call? I didn't notice her name when I was letting everybody in. Angela is in the process of recruiting some people to help her at the farmers market. I'm not sure if that's going to be this weekend or next weekend. Jason had about 200 candlestick plants left, and he graciously wanted to donate those to the community. Angela stepped forward and said that she would organize some people to help pass those out, and we made little quarter-page flyers. One side of it tells about the plant, says it's from the UT Gardens, invites people to come and visit the gardens because the gardens are open daylight, to dusk, Monday through Friday. And so that information is on there. And then on the flip side, there's information about registering for the fall intern class. And then at the bottom, I put a note there about the fall plant sale and where people can go to get more information about that as things progress and we have, more defined details in place. So that's going to be really cool. I made those little flyers yesterday, and that's going to be a great outreach tool. And as of right now, our farmers markets are still open and they are social distancing. So those are some things that are going on right now. Updated y'all on projects, updated y'all on statewide meetings. The county office is open. We're kind of still stuck at the same status that we were last month. The office is manned by one employee each day, and we're on a rotation. So I only get to go to the office once every 2 weeks. But there is someone there. So if you needed to pick something up, if you needed to get in the master gardener shed, I could leave things there for you if we needed to be, passing things between each other. So that is a place of correspondence. You can go. The doors are locked. You have to knock on the door and the person will let you in. One person is allowed from the public in the office at a time. So we do have the office open. I am still working from home. So if you have plant questions, you know how to get a hold of me. Email me. Text me is the fastest way if you need a pretty quick response. Contact me via text. And we still don't have any more information or light to shed on the whole situation of the fall festival or fall celebration. That's what we were calling it. I was confused. We weren't having summer celebration, so we're trying to kind of make our fall plant sale a little bigger deal. But we've just stalled out on that because we just don't know enough to be able to have a planning meeting for that. So at this point in time, it is on the UTIA events schedule, but we're not really sure if it's actually going to happen. Hopefully we will be able to have the plant sale regardless. So of if we have speakers or not. But I'm leaning towards we probably aren't going to have any speakers and it's just going to be a plant sale. Jason, if you want to add something to that and can unmute yourself, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like we most likely will not have any speakers, at least indoors. We may be able to have some outside activities, but I really don't think there'll be any indoor activities. But hopefully the plant sale is still going on. The master gardeners will still have their plants as well. So keep up, take care of those, keep dividing. And then in conjunction with our sale, should have a great event whether we have speakers or not.
Great. Awesome. Cool. Does anybody have any questions for me before we move on to our speaker? Well, I have one that just came in the door from Granddaddy's house. It's gonna get loud around here. I'm glad it's almost your turn, Lucas.
Hey, Celeste, Noah just typed a question in the chat for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, Laripe and Crown Rot. Okay. I'll send you a quick email once Lucas gets started about that, okay?
All right, thanks.
All right, good deal. All right, well, if nobody has any questions about, and I did address hours before we formally started the meeting. It was just an informal conversation. Do not stress about hours, please. If you are an intern, and be quiet, babies, and y'all are trying to get your 40 hours, don't worry. I'm going to extend that another year. So you're going to have an additional full year to get those hours. And
whose kids are those?
Those are mine. I just got the mad mom eyes. So Lane came in and now Ellie's mad because they're aggravating each other. It's just a mess. But anyway, so don't stress about hours. You're not going to lose your certification if you don't get your 25 hours this year or anything like that. But but I don't want to just say, oh, don't do any service, because, you know, we're a service organization. So do what you're comfortable with and we will make it through. Okay. But just don't worry about it. And then someone put a message in the chat box. How do we drop off PW pots for Jason? Do you need PW pots, Jason?
Absolutely. I can use proven winner pots, and anything above a quart size, no matter what the brand is. They can always be left at the back entrance of the building near the dumpster. There are some benches there. And if you'll leave those pots there, we'll notice them and we can sort them and throw out what we don't want right there and recycle the rest. So that'd be great. If anybody does want to come out and weed, Noah's been doing some weeding. Just touch base with me through email or phone, and I'll let you know what areas need it worst. And we are spraying some herbicide in areas, so we don't want you weeding a spot we sprayed the day before. So do touch base with me first, or Carson, and we'll direct you. But there's always weeds. Right.
Okay, great. Okay, so with no further ado, I'm going to hand this evening's events over to our guest speaker, Mr. Lucas Holman. He is the horticulture extension agent in Wilson County. You may be familiar with Wilson County because they have the world's greatest fair there. Yay. His group, he has a really good sized group. They're super active, really involved in a lot of things there at the fairgrounds and in their community. And he has several unique passions. So he's giving me the look. So he loves garlic. So we might have him at one point in the future talk to us about garlic. But today, I asked him to focus on one of his other infatuations, which is daylilies. So please inspire us.
I'm going to try and share my screen. So, give me 1 second, Celeste. Hopefully this will work. Can you see that, Celeste? All right. So hopefully we will just jump right in. And I assume that if you've got questions, we'll probably just hold off till the end, or you can put them in the chat box as we go through it. Right, Celeste? Maybe, yeah?
Yes, please. Go ahead and put them in the chat box, because if you're like me, you'll forget by the end. So go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll address them all at the end, okay?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I'm excited about this because right now everybody's daylilies are blooming. So we're going to go through some of the basics. So for some of you who are higher up like Lorraine in the daylily world, this is going to be very elementary. But we're going to go through some of the basic forms of daylilies. I'm going to show some of my favorite pictures of some of my favorite places. And we're going to go through hybridizing just a little bit because it seems like people are getting interested in that. Everybody's stuck at home right now. Everybody's wanting to garden and kind of do things their own way. I'll move this up just a hair. So let me talk about how I got started with daylilies. I had changed high schools about 1998, 1999. I went to a high school that was called Oakdale School in Morgan County, Tennessee. I'm from East Tennessee, a small town called Rockwood. So my high school biology teacher sold daylilies at a farmer's market in a small town called Oliver Springs, Tennessee, which is near Oak Ridge. And that kind of started this obsession for me, listening to my high school biology teacher. And I went to some daylily farms in East Tennessee when I was 16 and 18, started buying daylilies. And because that's what most 16-year-olds do with their money that they work during the week. They buy daylilies or, CDs or concerts or something like that. Concerts were really not my thing. It was all daylilies when you're 18 years old, Celeste. That's what you're supposed to buy. And what's crazy is you can pretty much name your price for some daylilies, and you can pay pretty much whatever you want to. Like this first one right here is called Blue Lightning. It's been out for quite a few years now. I still believe it's between $200 and $250 for a single fan. I am poor. I'm not able to buy some of these daylilies like that. Maybe one day, if my wife will get a second job, then I can actually buy some more daylilies. But I'm nowhere in the realm of buying any of these $200 daylilies right now. But I have bought some more expensive daylilies, and I'm going to go through and show you some of my favorite ones. since I have been in, quarantine right now, I will show you. We had a child in February, and I have to brag, she's probably the happiest baby in the entire world. So she has spent her life at the house with me and my wife for the past 4 months. She's 4 months old now, and she is doing pretty well. But that's my Ellie Pearl Holman, Eleanor Pearl, and that's my wife on the right there. But she is a happy, happy baby, and I hope that. And what's great is she laughs at my jokes right now. So I'm afraid when she gets older, she won't laugh as much. All right, let's start off with a quiz. I'm going to make this as hard as I can, and then we're going to go through. I'm not going to tell you the answers yet. As we go through it, I'll tell you the answers as we go through it. True or false? Are daylilies considered lilies? True or false? There are only 5,000 hybrid daylilies available today. True or false? Daylilies are edible. And true or false? Daylilies are native to Asia. So in the back of your head, go ahead and give those questions a true or false and tell me what you think at the end. All right, true or false? Daylilies are native to Asia. That is true. There are no daylily species that are native to the United States. So we see these along the ditches, which is the Hemerocallis fulva or the tawny daylily, the ditch lily, whatever you want to call it. This was actually brought over from colonists. So colonists got it from Asia. They brought it to Europe. Then they brought it over to the Americas 300 or 400 years ago. And that's how it's kind of naturalized over the areas. And it's more of a weedy type daylily because it does take over. If you have it in a bed, it will take over. So you may have heard me say the name Hemerocallis a second ago. That's the Latin name for daylily. And Hemerocallis is Greek for beauty and day because each daylily flower only lasts one day. And I know that's crazy. Some people will say, well, I'm not going to spend my money on something that's going to last one day. Well, they just don't have one bloom and they're done. We have other flowers that their blooms only last one day. Some of you love these perennial hibiscus. Their flowers only last one day, but they have so many buds on them, we don't realize that it's actually a new flower popping up. So I wanted to mention this. Also, these daylilies that were cultivated in Asia, they were used for herbal and medicinal and culinary type properties. So daylilies are edible. So we mentioned a minute ago in the true and false. Daylilies are native to Asia. That is true. Daylilies are edible. True or false? That is true. Now, I am not one to want to eat the daylily buds because people will say, well, you can saute them in butter and they taste good. I don't care. I would much rather see the flower. And they say, well, they taste like green beans. No, go eat green beans because those flowers on green beans are just not as pretty as a daylily. All right, jumping off with some basics. Daylilies are a perennial flower, which means they actually come back every year. Flowers only last one day. We don't typically see them used for a cut flower because they're not actually going to bloom every day. So we have roses sometimes that can last 7, 10, 14 days. A daylily itself, the flower only lasts one day. So that's why we typically don't see them used for a cut flower. They are low maintenance. Out of all the perennials you can grow, daylilies, I really believe, are one of the easiest ones. And they're not in the lily family, which is Liliaceae. They're in a family called Asphodelaceae. Daylilies are more closely related to red-hot pokers, which is Kniphofia, and the aloe plant than they are true lilies. And I'll talk about the difference between a true lily and a daylily in just a second. But a daylily is more closely related to red-hot pokers than they are lilies. So it's kind of the misnomer. We call them daylily, even though they're not a lily at all. This is a professional model in some gardens in North Carolina. If you ever get the chance to go to one of the best daylily gardens, I know we're not supposed to push businesses, but this is the best daylily garden I have ever been in. This is called Blue Ridge Daylilies in Alexander, North Carolina. And I would venture to say that it's probably 7, 8 acres of just solid masses of daylilies. But it's not just daylilies. It's all the landscaping because the owners are hardcore plant people also. So they're able to go through and select plants that do well for them because they're in zone 6. So they have some plants there that we typically can't grow in Tennessee because we're just a little bit too warm. But if you look at some of these daylily farms, you can kind of see which ones look good. Like I like that one in person. I want to take that home with me because not everything looks good when you bring it home. Sometimes the catalog lies a little bit and the color may be just a little off. So I want to encourage you to go to some of these daylily farms, daylily nurseries, and go see them in person as opposed to buying something from a picture that could be online somewhere, because it could have been the prettiest picture they took of it, and that'll be the only one they sell it by. Because I've bought plants before by the picture in the catalog, and I think this is going to look awesome. And then it looks nothing really like it. The shades are just a little bit off, and I'm a little disappointed. But I encourage you, go look at some of these daylily farms. And this Blue Ridge Daylilies, they're very active on Facebook, and they have quite a few introductions. And their gardens are actually open right now. So if you're up for a trip, it's right across the border in Tennessee. But from Jackson, it's probably about 95 hours. So it may not be feasible for some of y'all to head that way.
Hey, Lucas, quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Like from Gatlinburg, how long would it take to get there? And like in case people may be going there already.
I would say an hour and a half to 2 hours from Gatlinburg. From where I'm at in Lebanon, it only takes me about 4 hours to get there.
Okay,
So it
cool.
takes me probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to Gatlinburg. It's pretty spectacular. But y'all have some daylily farms, I'm sure, around West Tennessee, and Lorraine could probably help you find some of those. Any other questions, Celeste?
I did have one on my mind.
I'm ready.
When you were talking about the cut flowers and obviously how the blooms only last a day, well, you know, on that same stalk, there are several blooms, like in different stages of development. If you cut that stalk, will they sequentially bloom after you bring them in, or no?
Yeah, they will. And I've had some scapes actually where I broke them off, and I'm like, I really wanted that pollen, so I would bring that plant inside and actually the flowers will actually keep blooming if you keep them in water. But there kind of comes a limit of where, I don't know, 6 or 7 days, that scape kind of goes down and diminishes just a little bit. So it kind of depends on, I would probably change out the water some. Yeah, but they will.
Della, did you have a question? I thought I saw where you raised your hand on the little hand raising thing. No? Okay. Try to remember it. We'll come back at the end.
All right. Kind of going through, these were some other pictures from that daylily nursery, Blue Ridge. But you can kind of see daylilies are so diverse, but they come in so many colors. And I think what's shocking to some people is that right now there are around 80,000 daylily hybrids available. So the true-false questions a few minutes ago, I said there are only 5,000 daylily hybrids available. Boy, that is false. The number's probably approaching 90,000 after this year, because it's extremely easy to register a daylily and actually hybridize a daylily. But since daylily hybridization has been going around almost 100 years now, a lot of them have been lost over time. So it's interesting to me. We have so many new plant introductions every year. In 5 years, some of those plant introductions you won't be able to find anymore. So I get so excited about new coneflowers or maybe a new heuchera, and then some of them get lost over time because they're just not good performers. And I don't think some of these plants trialed long enough before they're actually released. And don't even get me started. I'm so tired of buying all these coneflowers that die. All right. Daylilies were grown for their herbal properties for hundreds of years. The name you need to know today, Dr. Arlo B. Stout, was the daylily king about 100 years ago. He became interested in these daylilies, and he made some trips. He got a bunch of different species from Europe and Asia, and he made, did you see that? 50,000 crosses. So he was keeping track of this. He was a very meticulous guy. He knew which ones he was crossing, so he was crossing a lot of these various species, daylilies, because there are a lot of species out there, and he was trying to get different colors. So the very first hybrid that he introduced was one called Mikado, and it was released in 1929. It was a little yellow daylily with a black eye, and that one basically started this craze. So even though he made 50,000 crosses, I think he only introduced about 100 of those, just to kind of show you how meticulous he was in actually picking out these plants. So you'll see some daylilies with an award, and it's called the Stout Medal. The Stout Medal means this plant has basically performed well all across the U.S. So it's the stoutest plant, but it's named after Dr. Arlo B. Stout. So it is given to one daylily each year that kind of gets the most votes as the best daylily all across the U.S. So if you're looking for daylilies and you're trying to find some of the best ones on the market today, go through and find that list of some of those. Just find the Stout Medal winner list, and that'll be ones that have just done awesome. And they only select one each year, though. And then in 1946, the greatest plant organization was formed, which was the American Hemerocallis Society. And I'm going to talk more about that at the end. Or I think it's referred to as the American Daylily Society now. So I'll talk more about that organization at the end. Love the organization. I love the magazine. I love the people that I meet at all these things. Kind of going through daylilies, we have such diversity. You can pretty much find any color that you want to, except for two colors. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Just woke up.
Yeah, just got up. You see my daughter's really fast.
Look how sweet.
All right. Pretty much every color fathomable except for two things. A true blue, and if you ever develop a blue daylily, you could probably call it the color of money because it's going to be worth a lot of money. And the other color, you're going to find this extremely shocking that daylilies don't come in, is white. A true white. They have all yellow pigmentation still in the flower. So we have some older white ones, one called Jones Senior. You look at it and you think that is a white daylily, but when you get it under a microscope, it's still yellow. So we have hybridizers today working on blues. We have hybridizers today working on that elusive white. Are daylilies considered lilies? False. I mentioned earlier that a daylily is in the family called Asphodelaceae, which is closer related to aloe and red hot poker, which is Kniphofia. A daylily actually comes from a crown of roots. A true lily comes from a bulb. And the other main difference, a daylily has fans of leaves, and a true lily has leaves on the stalk. So if you're trying to determine whether you have a lily or if you have a daylily, you'll see a fan of leaves. If it's actually a daylily, the leaves will emerge from the ground. A true lily will have leaves up and down the stalk. So sometimes people will say, I think these are daylilies, but you just need to look at the leaves sometimes. If you're really confused as to whether you have a lily bulb or you have a lily itself. We've got four main parts on a daylily, and you'll hear daylily people talk about this. The roots, crown, leaves, and scape. The roots are long, slender, and sometimes they'll have tubers on them, and basically that's water storage holding. The crown is the plant where the stem actually comes out of the plant where the new leaves emerge. So sometimes when people are dividing plants, they split them right down the middle of the crown. The leaves are the long, slender, grass-like foliage of the plant, but you'll hear people talk about the scape. The scape is the leafless flower stalk. Now, in that previous picture, it has a little bit of a leaf coming out of the plant there, and that's called a proliferation. And a proliferation is where you have a flower stalk, you have the scape, and you have a new plant actually form on the scape. And you can actually break that off, root it in water or soil, and it'll be genetically the same as whatever you have right here. So if you have a $200 daylily and you have a new proliferation pop up on the scape, then you have a free $200 daylily. So keep that in mind for those of you buying $200 daylilies. I'm going to go through just a few of these daylily forms because I could talk literally all night about daylilies, and you probably don't want to listen to me more than 3-4 hours. I know, and because my jokes are going to get old anyways. As we go through these, we're going to hit on the single type of daylilies, doubles, spiders, unusual forms, and I'm not going to talk much about polys and multiforms. What I do like about daylilies is each person kind of has a type that they really like. Like I am a fan of just single daylilies with big fat petals. I don't like double daylilies. My wife does. That's one of the great debates in our marriage, but we make our marriage work. She likes double daylilies. I think they're a little arrogant. There's too much fluff in the center. That's just not for me. I like a good full form daylily that opens up well. I don't like spider daylilies, but I'm going to show you some pictures of some that I've grown in the past. I'm just really picky on the daylilies. But when you talk about hybridizing, you have some hybridizers that are just known for doubles. You have some hybridizers that if I just look at certain plants, I think, well, I think so-and-so did that one because it's a spider, or I think so-and-so did that one because it's a miniature daylily. So you have people working on certain things like that. So jumping in to these daylily forms, the single is probably the most common one. It has 3 petals and it has 3 sepals on it. So when you look at this, the sepals are the 3 petal looking things that are behind the 3 petals. The sepals protect the flower while it's a bud. So generally, most daylilies that are singles have 3 petals and they have 3 sepals. If they have 4 petals and 4 sepals, they're considered a polymerous daylily, or we call them polys, so they'll have 4 and 4. But a single daylily just has those 3 petals and 3 sepals. Petals lay on top of the sepals. Boop. Here's some other examples of some hybridizers trying to get that elusive blue. That's both forms of these are singles. There are 3 petals and 3 sepals. Oh, this one was just a killer one that I saw that I got last year called Blue Ridge Lucky Charm. And it was blooming today. My favorite single daylily, Blue Ridge Lucky Charm. All right, a double daylily has an extra layer of petals in the middle of the flower. Now, there are a bunch of different forms of double daylilies, and I'm not going to go into all that. We're going to go through some more of the basic type stuff. These are the ones, like I mentioned, that my wife enjoys. So these were some double daylilies. Here's a couple of more that I've grown in the past. Now, the one on the left was called Bonabray Sharkey, and it had some teeth around the edges. And the one on the right was called Ted's Tea Time, hybridized, I believe, by Don Wolf, and he's a hybridizer in Kentucky. And Don Wolf is one of those hybridizers that's known for one specific type. He mostly does doubles. A couple of more doubles that I do like some doubles, so I shouldn't say that I hate some doubles. The one on the left is Raspberry Ripple Cupcake, and the one on the right was probably my favorite red that I grew a few years ago, Double Blue Blood. This was a seedling that I had bloom quite a few years ago, and I thought this is going to be a killer introduction. My first introduction is going to be fantastic. It never doubled again, and it became kind of an ugly red. So this one I got rid of. It was just the first couple of blooms were killer, and then it just went downhill from there. This was one that it should have been composted. I think I just left it at my mother's. So my mother's enjoying this plant right now. A spider has very specific recommendations on what a spider should be called. Specifications, not recommendations. The length to width on the petal ratio should be 4 inches to 1 inch. So for every 4 inches, it can only be 1 inch wide. So if an 8-inch daylily, it can be 2 inches wide. So hopefully I'm making a little bit of sense right there. The ratio can only be 4 to 1. This one was called Bottle Rocket, and it was a huge, long spider. There are quite a few unusual forms. I just did not have any good pictures of some of these. So you'll see people talk about a cristate daylily. It may have some pinched petals in the middle. You'll have people talk about cascading daylilies where they actually curl on the petals. You'll have some that are spatulate where they actually come out and they actually make like a spoon shape at the end of the petal. What I do like about daylilies is you can find any form available, and you can find them from like 12 to 13 inches tall to 6.5 feet tall. Like I have a couple this year. One of my favorite older ones is called Autumn Minaret. The scapes right now are probably already 5 feet tall, and it blooms every year about August. I've got another one called Notify Ground Crew. It's a 6 feet tall daylily. So make sure you're researching some of these things. So if you're trying to find daylilies to go in the back of the border, I'm not going to put one like this really small pink one on the right. That's called nanosecond. It only got about 15 inches tall. That's not going to go in the back of the landscape. I need to put something like Notify, Ground Crew or Sears Tower. I know Jason has sold one called Steeple Jackie before. The one on the left is a taller one too. That one was called Princess Diana, but it was a huge pink flower with a golden edge. But sometimes these pictures can be misleading. So sometimes when you see a picture, you think, I think that's a huge one. And then it turns out to be like that little bitty tiny nanosecond on the right. Little bitty cute popcorn double. Here's the great debate sometimes in daylilies. We hear people talk about tetraploids and we hear people talk about diploids. Generally, a tetraploid has 44 chromosomes and a diploid has 22 chromosomes, tetra versus di. Most of the older daylilies that were coming out were considered diploids, so they had just 2 sets of chromosomes, 22 chromosomes. Then, about 30, 40 years ago, they started treating the daylilies to actually make them mutate, and that actually made tetraploid daylilies. We have tetraploid plants also, too. We have tetraploid hostas available now also. So tetraploid daylilies are heralded by some growers as having advantage because they generally have a thicker scape. The flowers seem to be a little bit stronger. The colors seem to be more intense. We see more diversity in the colors also. We see more vegetative vigor in the stem and the leaf. And I think the breeding possibilities tend to be greater. But we have some people today who are just breeding diploids. And some of the plants they're releasing with diploids, you can't tell whether it's a diploid or a tetraploid just by looking at it because they look just like a tetraploid. The only reason why you would need to know really if a daylily is a tetraploid or a diploid is if you were wanting to hybridize and start breeding them yourself. That way, because I have a diverse garden, I have both, and sometimes I have to look it up because some of them really look good, and I think, are you a tet or a dip, and should I take your pollen over here or there? I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. But for the most part, it doesn't really matter unless you're trying to keep track of hybridizing. Diploids, we have a lot of hybridizers just focusing on diploids. A lot of the doubles look good as dips, diploid dips. A lot of the spiders look good. A lot of good pink daylilies out there. One of my favorites was called Barbara Mitchell. It was an older pink one. I love the soft color on it. Diploid daylilies have been around for almost 100 years now. Many diploids have been converted to tetraploids, which is not a real complicated process. So if a tetraploid hybridizer sees a characteristic in a diploid daylily that he is wanting to extract to put in his tetraploid lines, he will take a diploid, he'll treat it. There's a couple of ways they do it. One's with a chemical called colchicine, which is derived from the colchicum flower, the fall blooming crocus. And they'll actually convert it and they'll mutate that flower a little bit to make it a tetraploid. But that last bullet, there are more diploids than tetraploids introduced. So if you're into introducing flowers, hybridizing, this is key. You need to know what you have. Also, looking at the diversity of daylilies, and I mentioned it a minute ago, we have some that are extremely short. We have some that are extremely tall. And we can have a whole diversity. We have some that bloom early. We have some that bloom mid-season. We have some that bloom really late, and I'll hit on those. We have 3 main types of foliage on daylilies. Now, in Tennessee, it really doesn't matter. But some, if I have an evergreen daylily that was bred in Florida, it may not do as well up in Canada. So sometimes people who are hybridizing daylilies want to know what type of foliage it actually has. A dormant foliage will actually go completely dormant in the wintertime. Evergreen will keep a little green up in the wintertime, and semi-evergreen will have a little less green up. Sometimes if we have a hard enough winter, it will knock them back down to the ground. So some people who are hybridizing for some of these foliage characteristics, because daylilies are not just a beautiful flower. They're supposed to look good all throughout the summertime. And if a daylily has trashy looking foliage when it comes out of the ground in April and May, I'm not going to want to introduce something like that. I'm going to want to introduce something that has good, clean looking foliage. Get the size you want. That's my mother-in-law. And I mentioned a minute ago that we have some extremely tall daylilies out there. That is Notify Ground Crew, she's probably a little over 5 feet tall. It was right at 6.5 feet tall. And I have a couple of clumps of it here. I love that daylily. And it is a tall one. So if you're trying to find something to grow in the back of a landscape somewhere, get some of these taller ones. But if you have some borders that you want to do with some smaller daylilies, we have some that are only, 14, 15 inches tall. When I say what's the most popular daylily out there, it's probably the most overused one, but it's also probably the best one, Stella de Oro. Happy returns. Those are both good reblooming daylilies out there on the market. And we see people use them and people say, wow, that's just Stella. It's a really good landscape plant also, because it blooms pretty much from spring all the way to fall sporadically. Looking at some of these other plants, that one on the right actually won an award, the President's Cup, a couple of years. It looked like a Stella on steroids. It was called Toy Trumpets. It was released by a guy named Bob Sobek in the early 80s. Cut it off. Did I lose everybody? Are you there? Oh, I just about lost my service. Celeste, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We didn't lose you.
Oh, I thought it said internet is unstable, and I thought, oh no, I've lost everybody. And I went to my wife. I said, hold up.
No, you're good. We got you.
All right. We do have a few pests on daylilies. Aphids will sometimes be an occasional visitor in the springtime. Just as you can use an insecticidal soap to knock those back. We have a few spider mites. We have a few thrips that can pop about. Leaf miners are pretty much always an issue every year, but I don't spray for a whole lot of things because I'm not against pesticides. It's because I'm lazy. And we also have some issues with some slugs, but I haven't had a whole lot of issues. Another pest that some of you may have issues with, deer. Does anybody have deer in their landscapes? I'm sure you probably do. When I taught high school agriculture for almost 10 years, it was so cool to take leaves out of our greenhouse and have, kids with their iPhones take pictures of these things. And that's what these are. These are pictures taken with my iPhone under a microscope. How many of you know what this is? Celeste, what is that? You know that? These are both
Aphids.
aphids. Yeah. You can kind of tell an aphid because it has these two tubes coming off its backside right there. But it's kind of unreal what we can do with an iPhone these days and a microscope. There is one main daylily disease, and it's called rust, caused by a fungus called Puccinia hemorrhocalidus. But what's unique about it is if you see it, it'll rub off in your hands. Daylily rust, we have some wheat rust, and we have some other rust that will affect other plants. I have not seen daylily rust overwinter in Tennessee. I have gotten daylily rust before, but I haven't seen it overwinter because generally wintertime in Tennessee will cut it off, or will actually just, kill it completely. Maybe some of you have had it overwinter, but if you were in Florida, this is going to be a disease that's really going to be rough because it will overwinter every year because the winters aren't strong enough. Kind of going through a little bit about hybridizing, just a little bit. If I was going to hybridize these two flowers, I want you to know some basic parts. I want you to know where the stigma is, and I want you to know where the pollen is. So in theory, if I wanted to go through and cross these two, I'm going to go through and steal the pollen off of one and take it to the pistil of the other one. But first, I need to know whether it's actually tetraploids or diploids. So I need to make sure first both of these are tetraploids. So if I'm going to make this cross, I'm going to take the pollen from one, and I took this picture this morning. I'm going to take the pollen from one, and I'm actually going to touch it to the pistil of the other one. I keep track of all these things, so I put a little tag on it so I know, like, this is Strawberry Romance crossed with Goody Goody Gumdrop, and I know what the cross looks like. After a week or two, you're going to see a seed pod form, and that seed pod are the seeds of those two crossed. And what's great is you're the introducer of these plants. If they are awesome plants, they need to be introduced. They need to be trialed. They need to be grown for quite a few years. These daylilies are unique because each one's going to be a little bit different. In this seed pod, it's going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 seeds, and each one is going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to show you some seedlings. So I buy some seeds online from a couple of reputable daylily places because you can do that on some of these shady daylily groups. I bought some seeds of this cross. These were the 3 seedlings I've had bloom this year. One of the parents had a lot of purple in it. That middle one right there had absolutely no purple whatsoever in it. So I know genetics, you can just take the dice and throw it up in the air. You have no clue what you're going to get. I do love this cross. It turned out really well. I hate that middle picture. I took the picture with my shoes in the background. But I love this cross was just a killer cross. It looked great.
So I have a question, Lucas. So that one in the middle,
They're all siblings. These are all brothers and sisters.
right. So these are all brothers and sisters. So when the one in the middle developed its seed pod, so the thinking is that it won't be true to type either. You would have to just divide the plant, right?
The only way you can get a genetically true plant is dividing the plant. So sometimes people will hybridize them and they don't introduce them for 10 years. So like these are awesome. And if they do really well, I may introduce them, but it's going to be quite a few years. So it's not for the impatient people, but it also takes 2 years to bloom from seed in Tennessee. So when I got these seeds between 2017 and 2018. They just now bloomed this year. So this is for you patient people out there. Kind of highlighting a few other daylilies as we kind of wrap up because I'm not going to keep you all night. I love some of these colors. I love a big green throat. The one on the right was called Blue Wrangler, and it was kind of approaching that blue. This was a daylily hybridized by a really good friend of mine named Phil Steidel. When I was in college, I worked for a nursery called Burgess Falls Nursery, and he introduced this one. This was his first daylily introduction. It was called Fang-tastic, F-A-N-G, because it has all these yellow teeth all the way around it. And a lot of people who are hybridizing want some of these with teeth. The one on the left is called Behold the Lamb, and the one on the right is called Sprinkled with Paprika. All those little bitty red dots on the petals. A couple of other ones that are unique. We see people wanting to breed for striped daylilies now. It looks like someone took a pink paintbrush and just splashed it. That's called pink stripes. The one on the right is called Harmonic Hues. I cannot remember the one on the left, but I like eyes. You may be able to tell. I love a bright color in the center of a flower. The one on the right was called Barcode, but I like those dark eyes in some of these. This one was another beautiful eye in it. This one was hybridized by an Ohio hybridizer named Jamie Gossard. This is Viva Pinata. And what's unique about these, when you develop a daylily and it's worthy of introduction, you get to name it whatever you want to. So you can see some very unique names out there on some of these hybridizers' websites. So be sure to Google some of these names. Let me tell you why I like daylilies. I like daylilies for the people. This was on a national daylily tour a couple of years ago. I think we were in Louisville on this bus, and there's some hybridizers on the bus. There's just general gardeners on the bus, and we were just having a great time. And I like daylilies, number one, for the people, and number two, for the daylilies. If you are really into daylilies, let me encourage you to go to one website. Go to daylilies.org, which is the American Daylily Society, and that's one of my friends right there on the main page. That's Bob Faulkner with a girl named Hainsley Hatfield. They're both in Ohio. But if you're interested in joining the Daylily Society, we would love to have you. And what I love about it is we get a great magazine quarterly, and we have regional meetings. I love the meetings, I think, most because I love hanging out with Daylily nerds all the time. Join the American Daylily Society because the Daylily magazine is probably the best magazine around. Region 10, which is our region for the American Daylily Society, which is Tennessee and Kentucky combined, has quite a few Daylily farms in it. So make sure you go to the Daylily website and find a list of those. And you can find a list of those gardens also. And I mentioned that website at the beginning. Beautiful Daylily garden in North Carolina named Blue Ridge. We have a huge commercial operation north of Knoxville called Oaks Daylilies in Corrington, Tennessee. And get involved. If you're really passionate about a specific plant, get involved in some of these societies. We have Hosta Society. We have Iris Society. This is how you meet other plant nerds, and so you can hang out with them. Get involved with all these things. And that's actually my presentation, Celeste.
That was awesome, Lucas. Thank you so much. Yay! I learned so much about
Thanks for
daylilies.
having me.
Yeah, I mean, I know
So
some
glad you're
people-
joining the Daylily Society, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course I will. So, I feel like so many people, it's hot or cold on daylilies. Either they love them or they hate them, but I feel like I'm somewhere in between, and I have about 4 that I really, really like that are in my garden, and then I've got like 6 different ones that I could really care less for. And so I'm inspired. If I don't care for them, I need to take them out and get some that I like, because
I cull them. I know this is terrible. I cull mine each year.
I mean, there's such a selection that I know that I could find. I mean, obviously they're out there, like that pink stripes one. Oh my goodness! And then that
It's pretty cheap now. You can get pink stripes for $20 or $25 now.
and then that like all green one. That one is so unique. I've never seen anything like that. So I really, really enjoyed it. And we do actually have a few questions on the chat box here. So let me see. Okay, so Miss Martha asks, will a particular variety of daylily grow the same as far as color at whatever zone it is grown in? So like if I grew a particular daylily in Georgia, would it look the same here?
And that depends on temperature sometimes too, Martha. And generally, I'm going to say yes. If we have a really cool morning, sometimes some colors don't show up well. Sometimes my flowers don't open up well if it's a really cool morning. If I buy some daylilies for certain patterns don't show up on cool mornings. They show up on warm mornings. So for the most part, they will, though, Martha, look the same.
Okay, let's see. Miss Liz asked, are there some varieties that we could buy now that we would still get blooms on this year? So I guess, there are some that have different, like that are earlier bloomers or later bloomers.
Yeah, you have some really late bloomers. Like I have one called Autumn Minaret. It's just now sending up scapes. And if you can find them in pots, they would actually do a lot better transplanting. If you go to a daylily farm and dig them, they're probably going to lose a lot of those blooms, but you can try. And I'll be honest, I still buy plants in the summertime from daylily farms because I know they're going to bloom next year. For the most part, daylilies don't die unless you're a terrible gardener. There is a couple of diseases, but one's called crown rot, but it's kind of random of when it actually happens. But for the most part, if you're going to a daylily farm and buying daylilies in full bloom, and they're dug up out of the ground, they may drop a lot of those blooms, I'll be honest.
Okay, good to know. Here is another one. Miss Lori asks, off the top of your head, can you share a few of the reputable seed companies where a person might go if they wanted to buy some seed?
Yeah. There is a guy named Rich Howard in Connecticut. Very specific. He's
that
about the
sounds
only
shady. There's a guy.
Well, just go to ctdaylily.com. He is he's the only seed person I buy from now because you can't always trust buying seeds online. I'll be honest. And I bought some seeds online. I'm like, I'm not sure. But he's the only one that I trust now. And he is a daylily hybridizer also. He's got a lot of introductions. But you can go to his website. You can call him up, CT Daylily. And you can say, Lucas Holman told me to contact you about seeds. He has some great seeds. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If it's seeds from expensive plants, you'll buy 5 seeds. Those 5 seeds can be $80. It's not cheap in some cases, but you can get some crosses for $15, $20. But when you plant them this year, you won't see blooms until 2022.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. Rich Howard, ctdaylily.com.
Good. Okay, let's see what else. We've got a few more on here. Miss Lorraine Kroon says that she actually has one of the National Daylily Display Gardens. And
Yes, she does. I've been to your garden, Lorraine.
yeah, so it's in Oakfield, and she said that, you know, the bloom season in her garden is starting to wane, but you can definitely visit if you want to contact her. We can set that up. So that's Miss Lorraine. If you want to, when you get on our, you know, reporting system, you can look up our directory, and it's got everybody's name and number, or you may have one of the new printed directories that we handed out earlier in the year there. Oh, this is a good note. Liz was telling me that I could put my unwanted daylilies in our plant sale, which we have postponed, you know, to the fall. And I know some things are better planted in the fall than others. Would it be appropriate for us to put in daylilies in the fall plant sale, Lucas?
Yeah, if you can get them in the ground about 30 or 40 days before we get a hard freeze. So
Okay.
I try to do a lot of my digging and things and try to stop about the 15th of September.
Okay. All
That
right.
way they have time to get settled in.
Mm-hmm. Darlene asks, what can we do for rust? And I know you said that it doesn't overwinter, so.
I have never seen it overwinter, and I've had rust before. You can spray fungicides on it.
Okay.
If I got rust later in the year after my blooms are done, I probably am not going to do anything about it. I'm going to be honest because I don't think it's going to overwinter here. Now, Lorraine, I don't know if she's had rust overwinter, but in the fall, it's extremely important to take those leaves and throw them on the burn pile because
Okay.
if it does have a chance of overwintering, it's going to overwinter in all those older leaves.
The only
Okay.
time I've had rust is when I got it from another garden where I've ordered something and it was not there the next year. So
Yeah, I've had it before, and I think I've only had it once, but like Lorraine, it didn't come back the next year. So don't hit the panic button.
yeah, I
Right.
wouldn't worry about it.
I do have a question. Like I think that I've had a pretty bad issue with aphids early in the spring the past several years, and I haven't like treated them or anything. But when I get to like this time of the season, I have lots of dead leaves like underneath. You know what I mean? Like if I pulled out all of those spent leaves.
And that's common. A lot of the older leaves, some of mine will fall off too also. And I think sometimes some of these older leaves will just kind of drop off so newer ones can pop up. And that's
Okay.
what I'm under the opinion of. I don't think I've seen aphids kill leaves.
Okay.
Um,
I just
but
didn't
I've
know
seen
if was I allowing them to feed so heavily that was what's causing me, you
I
know,
wouldn't think so.
excessive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing. Jason mentioned in our chat box that most all of the daylilies that he puts in his sales, you know, the UT Garden selections, are rebloomers. So,
Okay. Good.
and he
Attaboy,
had
Jason.
that.
I'm proud of you.
He had that steeple
Steeple Jackie was one that he
Jackie.
sold. May still have for sale this year.
I remember when they first started selling that. It was so pretty. I didn't get one yet, but so pretty. And that's one of the big tall ones. If you were looking
Yeah.
at something,
It's probably, 48 inches, Jason? 5 feet, Steeple Jackie?
Yeah, it's about 5 feet tall. It's similar
Yeah.
to autumn minaret.
Yeah.
Can I make a comment about fall planting?
yes, please.
No, we're busy. All right. What's the next question?
Lucas, how old?
What? I'm
So how old are
36.
you?
I'm 36.
Oh, At one time, I had over 400 daylilies, and I will probably have 400 again someday, but not at my current property. But
I'm pushing
yeah,
you. I'm really pushing Jason to get more.
I have about 100 at my house. But when I was in grad school, and then when I finished grad school and worked at the Missouri Botanic Garden in Longwood, I rooted a lot of proliferations off of plants in the display gardens there. And a lot of those I didn't plant till fall, and they didn't have much of a root system. But I think it was Mr. Rinke perhaps suggested that when I planted them in the fall, if they didn't have much of a root system, to put a brick on either side of them to help hold them in the ground, keep them from frost heaving. So if it doesn't have a good root, and this is true with any fall planted thing, especially if it's bare root, if it doesn't have much of a root system, it can frost heave, where the freezing and thawing can push the plant out of the ground. So if you weight it down, it helps prevent that. Of course, mulching helps as well. But so I did that growing on the farm when we grew them in rows, and I put bricks around them that first winter, and they also help keep some warmth in. And I did occasionally lose some. I've never lost a daylily planted from, say, a quarter a gallon pot that was fall planted. But yeah, if you've got a little bare root plant, it is possible.
Good point made about frost heaving. I should have mentioned that.
So if you think you have some daylilies in your garden that you would like to donate to the sale, the best way to go about that would probably be to divide them pretty much as soon as possible, get them in a pot so that they can start like their recovery, I guess, and growing their own new little roots so that they aren't what we would consider like bare root, when you bring them to the sale in October. You don't want to dig them up like 2 days before you bring them to the sale, basically, is what I'm saying. For them to have the best chance at survival is what it's sounding like from what we just heard. Let's see. Philip says there is a breeder at 410 West Forest in Jackson. Elohim?
Yeah, Elohim daylilies.
Elohim.
Yeah, that's Phil Sims.
Oh, okay. Says there
Yeah.
book. His kids gave him a gift card for his Master Gardener graduation from there. He said he got some sort of cheap varieties.
Yeah, he's a hybridizer that has some of those $200 ones.
Whoa.
Oh,
In fact, he's introduced one for me called Queen Lorene. It's gorgeous.
Cool.
I think Jason has one too.
He does. Yep, he does.
Jason has one named after him.
Yeah.
Cool. Martha also asked if you have daylilies you think you want to donate to the sale, but you don't know the name, and then a question mark, like, so should we bother with it? I would say if you can be very descriptive about what the bloom looks like, that would be best. Like, even if you don't know the particular name of it, because people are hesitant, just like me, to buy a daylily that you're not sure what it looks like. So a picture would be even better. So if you could take a picture of it while it's blooming right now, we could stick those pictures with them at the sale.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So we've had lots of good questions and conversations. Thanks, y'all.
Also, if you're on Facebook, the American Daylily Society is very active on Facebook. If you don't want to join the organization, you go in and look at a lot of the pictures that people are posting right now. So.
All right. Well, I hope this has gotten y'all revved up for daylilies like it has me. I'm ready to get on the web and start surfing some stuff so I can wish list.
Buy some tonight. I'm proud of you, Celeste.
Well, I'm gonna have to rein it in. This is just crazy. I thought I'd calm down for the season. Now I've got another wave of stuff washing over me here.
Well, gardeners go through plant phases. Like, you need to go through a daylily phase. I don't know what phase you're in right now, but you need to transition. Daylilies are kind of the adult stage. Like, elementary stages are like hosta, coral bells, coneflower. Then you graduate and you move to the daylily stage, and you're like getting a PhD in gardening.
Oh, wait, is the iris stage come after daylily stage? Because I feel like I might be caught up in that stage.
I don't want to make Lorene mad right now.
Actually, I belong to both the Iris Society and the Daylily Society because the iris bloom before the daylilies.
Yep.
We've got to have good, bloom representation all throughout the seasons.
I agree. And I bought a ton of hostas last year, so I have a hosta bed started. But daylilies, I've been daylilies in 20 years now.
What
Do
about
what?
Darlene says, what about the Eucharist stage?
Now, most
you-
people just pass over that pretty quickly.
If you have shade gardens like she does, I'm sure you would go through a Eucharist.
I have my euchre under my hydrangeas.
Yep. I don't know what phase Jason's in. It's going to be some obscure plant.
What's your phase, Jason?
What plant phase are you in?
What was that? plant?
Conifers or? Hey, you're muted, Jason. We don't know what you're saying.
I'm going to unmute you. There you go.
Oh. Jason.
We can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. I think I'm in all stages.
All stages.
While we're on the note, if you don't mind, I'm going to walk over to a true lily and show you. Lucas was talking about the true lily having foliage from the stems, and see if I can do this.
Is it Black Beauty?
Oh, I don't know that I can do this. Maybe?
Oh, wow.
You're doing it.
Yeah, so this is Conca de Ora, I think is how you say it, something like that. Very fragrant. If you look here, I actually have it staked, but you can see the leaves are coming from the stem. I'm not too good at
We can see that.
my finger.
Yeah.
No, I can't see your finger.
So yeah, that's the true lily, and another difference between the true lily and the daylily is the true lily flower lasts several days, where that daylily, like Lucas says, is a one day lily. But yeah, cool plants.
How tall is that?
It is about 7.5 feet.
Okay. Whew.
Oh, it's so pretty. Is that at your house?
It is. It is.
I'll have to bring a shovel next time I visit.
I know. For reals.
So yeah, I kind of in all phases. Here's my collection.
Oh.
I think we should have a meeting where we do an online Zoom garden tour to everybody's garden.
Heck yeah.
Let's plan that. Let's put the date down.
Let's do it. All right, guys.
One thing real quick. So this is Steeple Jackie, and it's actually it's a little taller than me. And
So it and I have autumn minaret too, but they're about the same height. I think autumn minaret will end up being a little bit larger, but you can see they both been a little bit later, so it hasn't started yet. And we did offer some autumn minarets, and I've got some that we're dividing for future sales. So hopefully, Steeple Jackie. So hopefully we'll have it again in another year or so. I get some of those tall ones.
You know what would be really cool? Let's flood our Madison County Master Gardener Facebook page, the one that's open, with pictures of daylilies that are in our gardens. I know.
I love it. I love it, Celeste.
Nearly everybody has at least one daylily in your garden. This evening or tomorrow, let's go out and each get a good picture of at least one daylily and put it on our Facebook page and kind of spread the joy and let everybody know how much we enjoyed our talk for tonight.
I appreciate y'all having me.
Okay, I'm going to hold y'all to this. Lucas is going to get on our Facebook page tomorrow evening and look and see. So I want everybody to get on there.
Yep, I'm going to get mad if y'all don't.
All right. Well, thank you, Lucas, for coming. And I'll say we will just conclude tonight's meeting. And I hope everybody has a wonderful 4th of July weekend and stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Guys, bye.